Hey everybody, welcome to the War on Mediocrity. To get us started here on this channel, I'm repurposing a couple of episodes from my other podcast, the Managing Violence podcast, with some guests that I think you might find quite interesting, some high achievers in all sorts of areas of life. In particular, today's episode is with Mr. Tim Kennedy. If you heard it on the Managing Violence podcast previously, you haven't seen the video. So this is brand new today, the video of my interview with Mr. Tim Kennedy. Here we go. All right, I'm joined here by Tim Kennedy. Tim is a retired MMA fighter and Special Forces soldier. He's a third-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a black belt in Matt Larson's Modern Army Combative System, a black belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, a three-time U.S. Army Combatives champion. He's fought in the UFC, Strikeforce, and the IFL, for anyone who remembers the IFL. As an entrepreneur, he's the co-owner of Ranger Up Apparel and the founder of Sheepdog Response. He's a star of Hunting Hitler on the History Channel, as well as Hard to Kill on the Discovery Channel. Perhaps most importantly, he is a devoted husband and father. Matt Larson outlined what it meant to be the warrior in the room, and Tim Kennedy, you may be the living embodiment of that concept. So, Tim, thanks for joining me here on the Managing Violence podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's a great intro. I feel cool right now.
All right, awesome, man. Look, we've got a focus period of time, and I know you've done a ton of media, and your story is all out there. There's a lot of videos. There's a whole goddamn documentary about you. Like there's a lot of your story that's out there already. So I wanted to be a little bit specific, if we can, and try and drill down on some specific concepts. One of the things that's always impressed me about you and your material, especially what you've been doing with Sheepdog Response, is that the mental toughness and the self-reliance side of what you try and instill in people. Not waiting for someone to come and save you, being skilled yourself, and also being able to protect yourself and protect others in your community. I think that's really noble, and it's really the heart of this show as well, is trying to encourage people to look out for themselves and to be, as Matt would say, the warrior in the room. I'm really interested in. I know in your London Real interview, which is excellent, by the way, everyone should go and check that out. But in your London Real interview, you talk a bit about your father and growing up and sort of the example that was set for you. Would you mind just sort of unpacking that a little bit? So for those who haven't heard the interview, telling a little bit about what it was like growing up for you.
Yeah, I came from an extraordinary family with extraordinary uncles and extraordinary parents and extraordinary grandparents that, my grandparents, the greatest generation, lived through the American Depression, went to fight in World War II. My grandma was, making tin cans that was going to have food shipped over to soldiers fighting in Germany or Japan. My grandpa was repairing radio equipment on B-17 and B-25 bombers. And my dad was a narcotics officer that, his accolades are superior to mine in the things that he did in his grown-up adult world. My brother's amazing, my sister. So I was surrounded by all these amazing people. And, there was, remarkable circumstances and things that happened from, bringing my dad dinner to work one time, and he had pallets of kilos of cocaine and pallets of kilos of cash. Not sure if you've ever seen cash wrapped into a kilo, but it's a pretty cool thing. And they're all sitting around with MP5 H&K machine guns, guarding this stuff, waiting for the federal government to come and move it. And that was like me bringing my dad dinner, and going before that where, he flew to the Caribbean and was part of a buy where they purchased a plane full of cocaine from Pablo Escobar to bring it to the United States to distribute. Obviously the intent was to capture the guy selling it in Costa Rica, and then ultimately find all the distribution channels here in the United States. So this was a really common place for me to grow up in these like remarkable ways in these remarkable circumstances. And it wasn't weird to me. The thing that was imparted onto all of us this next generation, all of my cousins are similarly successful, as is my brother and my sister, was the idea of individual responsibility. You talked about like the tenets of Sheepdog Response, how like nobody's going to come and save you. And like that's an expression that people use for marketing. But it's also the truth. And in my life, where, the things that I've done, the things that I've seen, and the places that I've gone, like it has rung true, not just in fighting for your life or protecting your life. Like there's nobody going to be in the octagon to do the fight for you. There's nobody going to be in a canyon of Afghanistan to save you. But like entrepreneurially, philanthropically, like all of those things are like, what are you as an individual going to be able to contribute? And that was the expectation by my family growing up, was you are going to be a contributing member to this family, to society, and ultimately to this world.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's incredible. Like the level of role models that you had around you, it really goes to show how much impact that environment can have. When it comes to mental fortitude, I mean, you've obviously got it ingrained in you that you are going to live a life of service. You're going to service other people. You're going to service your community. You're going to be a person who contributes. Obviously, growing up in competitive sport and then joining the military, mental toughness was something that you had to lean on. Do you recall how that was developed? Like, is it something that just kind of happened based on your environment, or is it something that you really sort of you remember defining moments that made you tougher and more committed to achieving things?
I'm going to try to stay as PC as possible
No,
without
feel free not to.
throwing stones at this generation. If I had walked home with a participation trophy, not only would it have gone in the trash, I would have probably ended up either getting scuffed up or going for a run. Like you don't bring that filth into this house. My dad is not abusive. There was not abusive bone in his body. Everything that he did was to impart individual ability. And so there was no celebration for mediocrity. Like there was no, if this is the standard, like if this is the minimum to pass, and if I even suggested, alluded, inferred that all I was going to do was the bare minimum, I mean, there was trouble coming. And so that I lost my first wrestling match. I got pinned. My dad was like, I'm proud that you put in the work to make it here. I'm disappointed with you and for you for what happened. How do you think you can get better in your next match? Well, I'm gonna work harder. Well, that's right, son. You are gonna have to work harder, otherwise it will always end up just like that. Now, in current day parenting, that might sound really brutal. That that was a real situation and a real example, but that went for everything in my life,
Mhm.
right? Like if I were to wear a merit badge for something that I didn't do, oh man, like or if I just like, if you're gonna wear the like helping the elderly, and I went and I wrote a letter and I dropped it off at um, a home, and I didn't do anything, there's no way my dad would let me wear that, right? Like I would have to go mow their lawn, take out their trash, weed eat, clean their, like all the things that they can't do. And that's the point of that thing. So it wasn't just like the acknowledgement, it was the purpose behind it. And we had to understand that purpose. And obviously special forces, it's a different animal, where the consequence for not being able to do a thing could be death. And so in every single phase of training, they brutalize you, they humiliate you, and they break you down. And the realization at the end of this is like, it's not so that they can build you into this like robot that does these horrible things for the like the government war complex. Like it could not be further from the truth. They break you down so that, one, you understand the value of humanity and you really appreciate how beautiful we as a species are. But then you also know that you can't do it by yourself. Like, you have to be the strongest link in the chain, but you're just a link. And like, if you are the weakest link, everyone below you and connected to you is going to die. And ultimately, that individual responsibility of how strong can I make that one link, and that one link is part of a bigger chain, you know, is paramount.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I can see, even just looking at your career, even just looking at the resume that, and I gave like the very, very brief cliff notes at the very beginning. It's you've never been satisfied just being average, or even average good. It was I need to keep pushing for something more. It's not enough to serve. I need to be special forces. It's not enough to wrestle. I need to win. It's not enough to be an MMA fighter. I need to be in the UFC. Like, how did I guess I'm trying to dive in a little bit to. Was that from your childhood? Was that from always pushing to be more, to find your limits, to break those limits?
I mean, like, have you ever had lukewarm champagne?
Yes. Yes.
Was it good? Was it good?
Well, it depends how many cold champagnes I had first.
Yeah. What about a cup of coffee or a cup of tea? No, I'm not throwing stones. Served at a good 84 degrees. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm like, it's 6:30 in the morning right here, so I'm
Yeah.
I'm well caffeinated.
It's disgusting.
It is,
right?
yeah.
Like, having cornflakes with old milk every single day. Like, why would you want to live in to me, that's purgatory. Like, if
Yeah.
I were to live in like the perfect normal stereotype suburban, gonna drive this, gonna do this, gonna work to 9 to 5, I'm gonna, like, maybe every other week get to have sex with my kind of hot wife, with my kids that are kind of assholes. That literally sounds like hell.
Yeah.
Right. And the only way that you can have the super hot wife that's like wicked smart and live in the big house and, drive whatever you want to drive. My dad was a cop. Like, that's where I came from. Like, I talk about how incredible he is, and my parents and my grandparents and my uncles. But I mean, we lived off of a salary of like $30,000-$40,000 a year.
Yeah.
With 3 kids.
Yeah.
And like, there was no trust fund. There was no paid for college. Like, I had to work and pay for every single college credit out of pocket while I was going to college, while I was fighting. And so like the end result is, like, you really learn to appreciate something that you earned and that you worked for, and it's special. And then in my life, there's been such contrast where I'm overseas and, talking about coming home to my super hot wife, and I'm looking at a goat and a super nasty dude that's pooping in an MRE bag next to the Humvee that's parked next to the mountain, because that's the only place that we could poop. Otherwise, we're going to get shot.
Yeah.
Like, the contrast of coming home and smelling, like, her hair, the shampoo in it, the lotion for her skin, clean, soft, nice sheets in a big bed. Like, I've slept on the ground for the past 6 months, and now I come home. So, yeah, normal might feel okay when everything has been so shitty, but amazing and remarkable and incredible and delicious and fantastic and orgasmic, and like, who wants to be satiated? Like, I would rather be like overwhelmed with complete euphoric nirvana. Wow. You gotta work for that shit.
Man, I love that. That's so well said. Let's talk a little bit about stress. You're a man who has you've been blowing up, you've been shot at, you've had prolonged periods where you thought you might die any second. And you've fought in front of thousands of people in a cage with another trained killer. You probably have a relationship with stress that many of us don't want to have. Talk us through that. Like, let's talk about war first. it was you obviously you grew up in a high performance environment, but it was from what I understand a fairly stable environment. It wasn't like you grew up under threat necessarily. What was it like going to war for the first time?
Um, it felt home. It felt so the first time the helicopter, the Black Hawk, being flown by a 160th SOAR, we're coming in. Everything's black, right? And the only thing that you see is green and different shades of green. As the helicopter flared to slow down, it creates this big brownout from the rudder wash, and it kicks up all the dirt. And when you're in Afghanistan, or this was Iraq, it's like moon dust. It's not sand. Like, people think,
Fine.
if you're in Australia, New Zealand, California, Florida, like sand. Yeah, I know what sand is like. No, I'm talking about moon dust. I'm talking like dust that blackens everything out. And that's what it's like there. And that dust gets kicked up. And you see this static electricity of the friction of the rotor blades hitting that dust. And it creates this really weird green halo. And you're looking out and you're seeing these tiny little flashes. And that's just the static energy of the dust with the rotor wash. But then further out from that brownout, you see other flashes. And then you hear like, that was 7.62 by 3.9 machine gun rounds zipping by us as it passed. They can't see anything, but they're shooting at the sound, right? And so I take off towards the sound or the sight of those green flashes up on top of the hill in these buildings. And I look to my left and I look to my right. And this is my first time in combat. This is my first time being shot at. And there's dudes ahead of me. And first remember that I'm an incredible athlete. I grew up in an athlete household. I come from athlete pedigree. I have been an athlete since I was 5 years old. And, my brain, having been a firefighter, a police officer, an EMT, my brain works fast. It's normal. And there's dudes ahead of me, right? And I'm like, I'm at home. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Nobody told me to run towards the sound of gun or the sight of gunfire. But there were 11 dudes to my left and right that were all doing the same thing. And it was the first moment of affirming that I'm doing the right thing. And it was a surreal realization. Like, I wasn't like existential and I could look down at myself and be like, yeah, God did this. It was, hell yeah, I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah. Doing what you're put on the earth to do.
Yes.
Yeah. It's that's pretty incredible. You've mentioned before that you're involved in an incident where I believe your patrol hit an IED, which led into a 3-day gunfight. Was that the first time that you really felt like death is imminent?
So in Iraq, I was part of this task force that were all pipe hitter, superstar, tier 1 units. And we're going after a really bad guy, the number 1 bad guy in all of Iraq. So we had all the assets, right? We had all the air, we had all the support, we had all the cool gadgets. And we literally just kicked ass for 5 months. And then you go to Afghanistan and, you're working with the coalition. So I was co-located with a foreign special operations unit. They're like the one American, the LNO, between the Special Forces ODA, the A-team, and this coalition unit. So when we get blown up, there's no like blacked out helicopter with extra gunfighters being dropped in here. It's like, good luck, guys. Hope you don't die. And, I thought I was going to die. So did everybody in there. Matter of fact, I'm in the middle of writing a book, and we just wrote that chapter. And Kevin Keyes, at the time he was a major, who is still an incredible military officer. To this day, he's still in his military mind, and he was kind of in charge of everything. He doesn't know how we lived, any of us. Like that day, he's like it's the question that it's the itch that he can't scratch for the rest of his life, because the formula doesn't add up. We all should have died in that valley. And it's scary. And that was the first time where I was like, I don't get to see my wife again. I'm never going to fight again, and I'm never going to see my kids again. And, I'm not going to get to keep doing what I was put on this earth to do.
Yeah. I guess after you live through that, everything else seems to feel like the volume's been turned down, to use the Fight Club analogy. Did that change your relationship with professional fighting? So I know you were a fighter before you went to war. You come back, you're fighting still. Did that change that mental experience of fighting in a sporting environment?
I think up to that, I was a pretty selfish person. And I'm not saying after that I had it all figured out, but it really made me change how I viewed everything, because I saw things and did things that I'll regret forever. But I also, in the contrast, right, of cold and hot and light and dark and extreme ends of this life, I saw the best and worst of humans in those times. Little kids running to protect their little sisters, old men running to protect their neighbors, and selfless sacrifice by all the guys to my left and my right that I didn't deserve to be with. So the worst and the best, I got to see it all. So coming out of that, yes, I was absolutely changed. Did it change me as a fighter? No, it changed me as a person.
Sure. Yeah. I imagine that. I think if you can go into that kind of environment and come out unchanged, then you may have been a little bit damaged before you went in there. It's
Yeah.
there may have been something wrong to begin with.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about what you're doing now, and the lessons you're trying to give people that haven't had those experiences. What was the origin of Sheepdog Response? How did where did that idea come from?
So Army Special Forces, they are force multipliers. Whether, counterinsurgency, guerrilla warfare, unconventional warfare, whatever slogan you're going to tag on what we do, is you take a few of us, you put us into a place where a bunch of bad things are happening, and there's a group of people that don't like those bad things. And then we show them how to fight it. We show them how to fight for themselves. We show them how to fight for their freedom. We show them how to fight. And so that is what a Green Beret does. Coming back from trips overseas where I was doing that was the role, that was the capacity that I was in, whether that's Iraq or Afghanistan or South America or Africa or Europe. While I was over there, I would see Columbine, or the Pulse nightclub, or the Boston Marathon bombing, or the list just goes on and on. The Marine 5K, the San Bernardino Christmas party shooting, and there's too many schools shootings to list. And I would come back with a heavy heart of like, why couldn't I have been there? Like if I was there, if I was at the Pulse nightclub and that asshole went to walk in there, or Aurora at the launching of Batman Begins, and a dude throws a gas canister in there, like, while everybody's screaming and losing their minds, like, I might have to hide my erection, because it was like, yeah, this is gonna be awesome. Like, this asshole is about to have a really short fight, and I'm gonna, get to be the hero and go home to my hot woman again. That was the genesis of it, was the realization that I can't be everywhere, but I can train somebody that could be. And why would I do this overseas for people that, if we look at history, I might eventually have to fight anyways? Why couldn't I do that for just fellow patriots? Like, not just Americans, like, we do people from all over the world that just want to fight to protect them and theirs. Like, this is not a militia. This is not like violent skills. This is a movement of people that just value life. Our motto is protect and preserve human life. That is our mission statement of the company. And, you know, when you look at the guys, you know, Jeff Teagues that runs Guardian Group, counter human trafficking, sex trafficking, you know, he's one of our instructors, former Delta Force guy. Matt Smith, 20 plus years Special Forces Sergeant Major. Dennis Jones from CID, MP, you know, working for the Pentagon, protecting Joint Chiefs of Staff people. Like, these are the people that all have that same string attached to their soul, to their heart, where they have to do this and they don't know how. Well, we've figured out that this is the best opportunity, the best conduit to give this information to people that could use it, and hopefully save and protect life. All life, right? Like, I'm not talking any specific life. All religions, all genders, you know, all whatever you think your gender is, all colors, all hair colors, all everybody's life. We protect life.
Yeah, I mean, I love that as the ethos of your company as well, because being around this, you know, martial arts and self-protection and prepper world for a while now, you find there's a percentage that, like, you feel like the only reason they're in it is because they actually hate people. Like, they like hurting people, and this is like a quasi justifiable reason to practice it. Whereas your ethos is actually the opposite. You love people and you want to protect people. And I think that, well, one, it's a hell of a lot healthier. And two, it's just a really wholesome way of looking at what we do. I wish more people had that attitude, that, you know, what we're actually contributing to society by studying this stuff is not to make more violence, but to actually make less violence.
Yeah, it's the same. You know, as we're in a really sensitive time, Black Lives Matter, Antifa. You know, that same mentality for training law enforcement, where, you know, like, I'm not training law enforcement how to do these things so they can hurt people. I'm training the law enforcement so they know how to protect and help people. You know, and the only way that, because there are bad police officers out there, there's also bad soldiers out there. There's also really bad selfish fighters out there. In the right environment, those bad people can't exist. There's not room for them. Like, on a Special Forces ODA, if you were a asshole and you showed up and you're going to be the tough guy there, like, you're going to have a really, really rough go at it. You know, not like a soap and a sock, but worse, like way worse. You know? You won't be there. Like, if you're a racist asshole, you're going to be gone. Like, we literally train every single day about how to kill somebody and how to fight somebody and how to fight wars and how to train other people to do that. But I argue there's not a single person on the planet that values human life more than those people.
Yeah, that's incredible. When you've got, sorry, I'll just pause the recording for a second. When you're training someone who doesn't have, I guess, hasn't had the life experience, or hasn't got that mental toughness that comes from adversity and comes from overcoming obstacles, and maybe doesn't handle stress very well, but they've signed up for a sheepdog response training, how do you encounter that? Like, how do you deal with that? How do you help that person, I guess, tap into that inner strength a little bit more?
Yeah. So, I mean, you said it in your question, somebody that hasn't overcome adversity. So you have to do hard things. You have to face adversity. That's it. Like, there's not this, you can see from my life and my resume, I go out and find hard things. You know, it's like, I'm learning how to fly a helicopter right now. That's a hard thing to do. I'm 40 years old, you know, like, that own 6 businesses, and I still deploy, and I'm learning to fly a helicopter because it's hard, you know, and the specific helicopter that I chose to fly, like, I could fly anything I want. And there are way better helicopters than the one that I'm learning in. But the one that I'm learning in is the hardest helicopter there is to learn how to fly in. And that's the reason why. And like, I don't want to do something I know I can do, because that won't make me better as a person. And then everybody else can do it too.
Yeah.
I want to do things that I don't know if I can do. And even in failure, I will have growth as an individual. Like, even if I don't accomplish it, like facing that problem and losing to it, and then being able to rally and try to figure out if I can do it a different way. You're like, hell yeah, give me more of that.
Damn, dude. Talking to you makes me feel like such a lazy pussy. uh, Man, there's so many lessons to take from that in all areas of life, not just whether you can manage an active shooter situation, but just like how you're going to manage stress generally. Actually,
Everything,
yeah, go on.
everything about life is better on the other side of this stuff, right? Like the food tastes better. And when you work out hard, like I can't go and eat some fried sugary crap. It'll be disgusting. Like my mouth, I can't even think about it. Like right now, as we're talking, if we walked out to my Traeger barbecue, sitting on top of it is 2 chicken halves. So like a chicken cut in half, being smoked at 225 degrees. And it's going to sit out there for 2 hours. We're coming out with a bottle of wine, a bunch of avocado, a big salad, maybe some chocolate, some dark chocolate after dinner, maybe, I don't know. And it all tastes so good. Like, how hard sex is when your libido's in the tank because you're overweight and you haven't been exercising. Inversely to, man, I work out 6 days a week. So does my wife. Libido is kind of high through the roof, and we're both super hot. And we can do like, should I pick her up? Like one-handed, do something awesome with my other hand. Like maybe hold her against the wall. Like maybe she's gonna hold me against the wall. I don't know. But like everything is awesomer. Everything is cooler, and everything is more fun on the far side of all that adversity, on the far side of all that hard work. Or you could live in that lukewarm cornflakes.
No.
No.
And now we've discovered why Tim has 4 kids.
Yeah.
Tim, let's to take the conversation a little bit darker, but I'd really like to get your thoughts on PTSD and dealing with trauma after an incident, whether it's from the military context, whether it's someone who's been involved in a situation they weren't prepared for. What are your thoughts on how to manage that and just your experiences? I'm sure, given what you've been through and given the people that you know and that you're close with, it's something that's very close to your heart.
Yeah. So first, dealing with PTSD happens before the incident occurs. The people that deal with, we're talking about stress, external stress. The people that deal with serious stressful situations and deal with them well are very healthy, functional people, like interpersonal skills developed, educated, exercise, good diet, not alcoholics, not diabetics, not obese. And so when we have to go and see these horrific things, we have a lot of coping mechanisms that are already highly developed, and we're able to do that. But if you take a National Guardsman that is overweight, that works a part-time job as an air condition repairman, and he's over in Iraq driving a truck, and he hits an IED, and the dude next to him pretty much vaporizes and turns to mist, and he's covered with his own, crap and maybe some of that cerebral spinal fluid. Like that guy's gonna have a really difficult time dealing with that situation if he survives it, because he's gonna pretty much be like lizard brain for the next 2 days until things start functioning highly. And whereas like I'm driving in a truck, graduate, educated guy, highly functional, interpersonal development, very healthy. I eat clean, don't drink, don't smoke, don't do drugs. And like, yeah, it sucks. Like my friend just died, but the healthy way that I'm going to deal with that, like how I'm going to mourn, is going to be way, way better. So then bad thing happens. What do you do? Well, one, everything about postponing pain doesn't postpone it. It actually delays it to make it worse. Like the onset of something bad the longer that is offset, the more it just keeps building and building. So having people you can talk to, I think that healing is way easier with sweat. Like the more you sweat, the less you bleed. And then afterwards, the more you sweat, the faster you heal. And so that's a lot of exercise. That's a lot of clean living. I heard a bunch of women and children in Afghanistan. A terrorist, a foreign fighter, took a PKM machine gun, stuck it out a window, and started shooting at my friend Mike Goebel and I. And the door that we were standing in front of just was being shredded with 7.62 by 5.4, traveling to 2,900 feet per second, just destroying this door that we are standing at. And how we didn't die, I don't know. So we kick open the door, and I see this machine gun still just hammering us, and I chuck a grenade through that window where that machine gun was. And of course, this asshole has barricaded women and children around him. And the regret and pain that nightmares and really normal. You said yourself, somebody that doesn't come out of that unchanged is not a healthy person. Like I came out of that situation very, very changed, and hurt. I drank to try to dilute it, and all it did was postpone it. And so I'm speaking not from my high castle. I'm speaking from experience, firsthand experience, that the only way to deal with problems are turn and face them. The longer you wait, the longer you dilute, the longer you postpone, the worse they're going to be. So, finding somebody you can talk to, working out, living clean, that is a recipe for success.
Yeah, it's a really interesting perspective, because I've asked several people about their thoughts on this subject, and no one has ever said it starts before the incident, it makes so much sense. But I've never heard anyone say that before, and I think when you look at quote unquote regular civilians who will sometimes put their head in the sand and say, well, I can't possibly prepare for that because who knows if I'm ever going to be involved in an incident that's going to, well, you can still prepare for it.
Absolutely.
You can still be healthy. You can still look after your own mental health. You can still look after your own coping mechanisms about when you have a bill you weren't expecting. Like you can still practice this.
Yeah, with COVID right now, you're seeing this spike in suicides and spike in depressions, and you're going to see, and you see a ton of antidepressants being prescribed right now, high divorce rates, high domestic violence rates. What I see is a bunch of people that had been failing at life before. They were failing when that stress hit. And can you prepare for a pandemic? Yeah. Yes, you can. Can you prepare for losing your job? Yes. Can you prepare for maybe not being able to go buy groceries or toilet paper? Yes. Those are all things you don't know, you can't prepare for everything. And if you're living your life in fear, that is even worse than not being able to respond in a healthy way to the problem that's at hand. But being a high functioning person that you can adapt, your ability to adapt really comes down to the training that you've put into yourself. You could ask all of my friends, that are pretty similar to me, from Justin and Theo and Dennis and Matt and Jeff. They're like, how was home life during, locked in for a few months? They're like, it was fine. I got a lot of projects done. I got a lot of work done. Got, in my case, I got to, get halfway through writing my book. Was able to prepare for launching a new company. Inversely, go to talk to somebody else and they're like, oh, I hate my kids. I've been trying to work from home, and I regretfully had to beat him a couple of times, and I hit him one time in the face. I was like, you're a really bad person. I don't know if you know this, and what we're seeing right now is just an opportunity for how unhealthy you were as a person to be demonstrated.
Yeah.
You should have prepared for all this before.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I'm so professionally, I'm a management and crisis consultant. I guess is probably the easiest way to explain it. And we're dealing with a lot of businesses that are like, oh, we couldn't have foreseen this was coming. It's like, yeah, you could have. I mean, yeah, like you can have systems in place to deal with crisis. You don't have to know exactly what the crisis is going to be. Like it wouldn't have mattered if this was COVID or, or was Ebola. Like, like things are going to be the same. Like you're going to have to practice for upheaval, and it's a corporate sense as well as a personal sense. I'm really excited about this book, though. That was one of the questions I had for you. I didn't know you were writing a book, but I was going to ask you to, because I've read some of the things you've written over the years, and tell us about the book. Tell us what the plan is.
Writing sucks. Yeah. Also, when you're talking about yourself, it's so exposed. Like all of my failures, and really the point of it is, like, this is not a bravado, I'm an A type man that did all these things. Like most of the book is my failings, and there's a lot of them that you can write an entire book about. Starting as a teenager, where I had a couple of women pregnant, I thought I had AIDS, and I take all of my clothes off and I walk into the Pacific Ocean. I start swimming west into the fog, and how to rebound from, and that was not rock bottom yet, by the way. How do you
there's so many questions I'd like to ask about that story.
Yeah. How do you rebound from that to, fighting for world titles and running companies? And, there's, and really it's what we've been talking about. It's about adversity and overcoming adversity. But there's so much failure and there's so much adversity in my life, that the book is hopefully an inspiration story about, it doesn't matter what your circumstance is. It doesn't matter what your environment is. It doesn't matter what your socioeconomic class is. It doesn't matter what your skin color is. Find hard shit and do it. And then you see me do it and fail mostly.
Hey, you failed at enough stuff. Eventually, you're gonna succeed at some of it.
Maybe. Yeah, we'll see. I still got 40 years of life left, so I got a lot of failing to do.
That's an awesome note to leave the main interview on. Tim, anything you'd like to plug before we head over to the bonus round?
Man, freedom. The freedom from fear and freedom from, there's so much oppressive thoughts and ideas circulating, from mainstream media to, like some podcasts to Twitter, to Parler, to Instagram. Like I can't live my life like that. And I can't imagine someone else being healthy and living their life like that. So everything you want is on the far side of hard work. And you have to believe that it's worth the effort. We're talking about doing these hard things, man. I'm telling you, it's so sweet on this side of hard work. So that's my plug. Go do hard stuff.
Nearly everyone tries to sell something with a plug. You just sold a dream. That was amazing.
Man, with rising tides, all ships raise. I believe that, and I think we're lowest poverty and world hunger in the existence of our species. We have lowest human slavery, even though it still exists. Sex traffickers. Like we are living in an unprecedented time of prosperity, and yet we talk so much about how horrible things are. And so yeah, I'm selling a dream, because like if everybody's doing better, I'm doing better. So everybody do better.
Thanks so much for listening to the episode today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you're a long-time listener of the Managing Violence podcast, I hope you enjoyed hearing it again. But if not, thanks for tuning in and joining us in the War on Mediocrity. Please follow us on social media. We're everywhere at War on Mediocrity. We're on Patreon at War on Mediocrity, and we are also live on our website, waronmediocrity.com. Make sure you check us out.